Alrighty, y'all. So, out here getting the cardio done. And it is off and on raining. At the moment, it's stopped. So that's nice. But it is starting to get pretty humid on out. But hey, it is what it is. It's New England, right? Freaking more or less all of the East Coast is freaking stupidly humid all the time. But anyways, we are pretty sore from yesterday's chest day. I wouldn't say super sore, but I can feel the fatigue in the chest and in certain positions. I can feel the tenderness, but it's not just, oh, this hurts sore. So it's pretty hard for me to end up getting to that point with my chest. It's really only my legs that are like that, and it's probably because they're incredibly weak comparatively to everything else. And I think part of it is too is since I work out by myself, my rest times end up fairly long because I kind of zone out to my music in between sets and whatnot. And then I don't have anyone to push me through assisted reps after failure. So basically, I have to make sure I'm able to rack the weight and not injure myself on anything. So I'm not able to push to, per se, complete failure. So everything's always 1 or 2 reps in reserve, which kind of sucks. Except for something like a cable fly or something like that. Obviously I could take those to failure to where I just literally can't move my arm forward anymore. But that's on lighter weight accessory work, which going to failure obviously, is always going to be beneficial on those. But I feel like a lot of growth and stimulus occurs under large compound weight failures. Like your bench press will grow the most when you're failing under your bench press and just forced negatives for 1 or 2 reps. And man, it is a big difference in the pump and how sore the chest is after failing the bench press, but then continue to do like forced negatives. So having a workout partner can definitely be very beneficial, especially if you both like to train the same way. It'll be a big benefit to you for sure. But I do not have that luxury. So what we do is, you just got to work as hard as you possibly can while mitigating injury. I mean, obviously injuries can happen with a workout partner, but it's kind of less likely, I would per se say, unless you're just full on just ego lifting in horrible form, and then, well, you're going to do that with a workout partner or without. But so we just finished up our walk, and since yesterday was chest day, that means today is shoulders. So still focusing rear delts. We want to get that big round bulbous look to the back of our shoulder, as well as the roundness to the side of our shoulder from the front view. Is definitely still our focus. So I've noticed too, with my focusing the rear delts the last couple weeks, it's also helping the bar when I go to squat sit better on my back. I didn't have to use that pad on the Smith bar on day before yesterday's leg day. So that is also a benefit. Is the bigger your traps get, And the bigger your rear delts get, the more comfortable it is to have that bar sit on your back. So I think with those getting focused, because I'm taking trap focus on back days and obviously rear delt focus on shoulder days now, that'll also help making that a lot more stable and more comfortable, because it's going to keep it up out of my spine. So with that, I'll go ahead and see you guys later in the gym when I go to knock out shoulder day. We'll have some more to chat about. Alright, so we're starting out with shoulders. I'm going to head into one set at 15 pounds just to warm up a little bit so the rear delts just don't totally get slammed right off the rip. But I've got 25-pound dumbbells here. We're going to go ahead and knock these out for 3 sets of 12. Focusing on rear delts, obviously, doing a dumbbell rear fly. We're just doing these in a like chest supported style, which to me creates a lot more rear delt engagement. And if you're really trying to grow that rear delt, these are a big game changer. Oh. Boy, oh boy. So, with those, if you keep your shoulders pulled back and retracted, you're going to get some rhomboid and like inner trap engagement, obviously holding the scapula over. But it allows for you to get a bigger stretch at the down position instead of having the shoulders like rolled over like this. If they're up like this, you're putting that rear delt into more of a 90-degree position, creating a slightly larger stretch in the bottom, creating more tension on the muscle. So, at least that's the way, for me, the way it ends up feeling and where I get the best contraction and pump from doing them. It's making sure I'm leaving those scapulas retracted. Now, you can do it with your shoulders stretched and then contract as you go through the movement, but I feel like it takes a lot out of the rear delt when you're doing that, and so you're losing a lot of that isolation that you're trying to achieve. So, with that, I'm going to go ahead and knock out my next 2 sets. Then we'll go ahead and we'll move on to cable rear flies. We've gone ahead and finished our 3 sets of 12 dumbbell rear flies. Now we're going to move on to 3 sets of 15 for cable rear flies. And I like to do these from just above the top of your head, arcing down to just below the bottom of your pec basically. And by doing that, for me, when my arm goes from here to here, I get quite a large amount of rear delt engagement. But if I'm like from, say, down to up, I get a lot more trap and side delt. If I'm just straight across, I get some side delt, some rear delt, but a lot of scapula movement with the rhomboid and inner trap. So coming down at that angle gives me a lot of that rear delt engagement into which where I can get it to contract. And it feels the most effective in that range. So if you are having a hard time getting your rear delt to engage on a rear cable fly, go ahead and try making that modification and see if that just slight downward angle all of a sudden just engages those things and make them fire off like crazy. So it took me quite a while to figure that out. But once I did, it definitely changed the way my shoulder reacts. Oh. Boy, oh boy. Those will put the pump in your rear delt. Ugh. Those things are fire. So this is probably one of my favorite isolation movements for the rear delts, because I can get the most contraction on these, a lot more than the dumbbell rear fly, but that dumbbell rear fly allows me to get a little heavier because I could use some of that swing and get that momentum going. So it gets a real good heavy load on the rear delts. These, it's just solid, smooth contraction all the way through, which just really pumps all that blood in there. And then next, we'll end up doing face pulls, and I enjoy doing those too because it's a slightly heavier movement, but I can do it for quite a bit of volume at a heavier load. So it just really pummels a lot of blood into the rear delts for the first half of that movement, and then it's a lot of scapular like rotation. So it brings in the rhomboid, the inner trap, upper trap, and a little bit of lat to pull the shoulders into the spine. So, but 70-80% of that you should feel in your rear delts, especially since that's what you're trying to focus with that. So if you're having a hard time also getting the rear delts to engage on the face pulls, play with the height a little bit. Go a little lower, go a little higher, go above your head. For me, it's right about neck height and kind of pulling basically into my ears, but stopping right about where my thumb would poke my eye if I stuck it out like this. Because going any further, it transitions a lot out of the rear delt and into the rhomboids and inner traps. I'm not really trying to focus those with this. So I'm gonna hit my next 2 sets of this. Then when I move into face pulls, I'll go ahead and bring you guys on for those. Alrighty guys, so we finished up for cable flies, knocked out all 3 sets for 15 reps. Now we're gonna go ahead and move into doing face pulls. So let me go ahead and adjust this down to neck height, which is where I like to see the cable here is basically right between like my mouth and neck area somewhere. So again, we want mostly rear delt engagement here. We don't want to feel a bunch of rhomboid, lat, and inner trap engagement. So, with that, it's a nice heavy compound lift that you can use to get that rear delt driving with about 80% of that. That's where you want to feel most of that load. Then that other 20% you're going to feel in your rhomboids, your inner traps, and your lats, but you don't want those to overpower the movement. So if you're feeling nothing but like your back work and not your shoulders, you got to lighten the weight, because you're just working at too heavy of a load and you're allowing your back to take over in that movement. So, as long as you're feeling your back to your shoulders blow up and light on fire, you're doing it right. Otherwise, bring the weight down and you'll notice a big change. Also, change where you have that pulley set a little bit. It's going to vary for everyone slightly. But for these, for the most part, if you're trying to hit the rear delts, you don't want to be above your nose, and you don't want to be, you don't want to be above your eyes and probably not below your chest. Because the further you go down, the more you're pulling that weight upwards, which is going to get more of the traps engaged. And the higher you go and you're pulling downwards, the more you're going to get the lats to engage as that secondary muscle. And both of those are much stronger than your rear delt. So you'll notice that you just won't get a really good rear delt pump, but if your lats or your traps feel engaged, It's because the weight's too heavy or the angle you're pulling at is either too high or too low. So make sure you guys are feeling what you're trying to work. And basically with these 3 exercises, with the dumbbell rear fly, the cable rear fly, and face pulls, you can build an extremely solid rear delt and big fullness to the back of your shoulders. So these are the 3 movements I'm using for now and for a while to go ahead and keep blowing up that rear delt, and they're already making drastic improvements with switching those 3 to the front of my workout and putting the most effort I can into them while I'm fresh and I have all the energy right now, because that's where I want the most growth on my shoulder day to be focused at, is on my rear delt right now. So if that's what you guys are trying to achieve, go ahead and give that a try. But now we're going to go ahead and move on to lateral delts, so our side delt, and then we'll finish off with our front delt. So let me go ahead and get these finished up here for face pulls and move on to side delts for side cable raises, and then we'll go ahead and move on from there. Now that we're done with face pulls, we're going to go ahead and move into side raises here for 3 sets of 10, 20 pounds, and just get these things knocked out, and then we'll move into front raises. That'll be our shoulder day. Right now we're just doing the 3 rear delt exercises, 1 side delt, 1 front delt for now, since our emphasis is on the rear delts, and that way it keeps it very focused. My front delts definitely don't need much extra work. I'm thinking my next shoulder day I'm going to go ahead and add back in upright rows as a secondary side delt exercise. So it'll be 3 exercises for the rear, 2 for the sides, 1 for the front. So that way I can also start working on building up that side delt, because my rears are starting to not per se catch up to the side delt, but they will very quickly be probably near where my side delts are, and I don't want them to per se outpace each other. So man, those things are tired today. Tell you what, some days they do better than others, but that 20 pounds on that side raise is just incredibly taxing for my side delts. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the next 2 sets of those knocked out. Excuse me. And then we'll move into front raises, and then we'll knock out leg lifts today for our ab exercise, since yesterday was cable crunches. So let me get these knocked out, and I'll catch you up when I move on to front raises. All right, so we're doing side raises. We're going to go ahead and move into cable front raises using the Easy Curl Bar attachment. I like doing these palms upwards. To me, it engages a lot more of the front delt when basically, so if you take your arm, you go like this and touch your front delt, to pick it up, it's definitely engaged, but if you take your arm and you internally rotate it, this front delt gets a whole lot more stretched because it attaches out here. So here, shortened, here, even lengthened. So the more length you can put on that muscle, the more stretch you're going to get, and overall more contraction. So, for me, I enjoy doing these front raises palms up. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and knock out 2 more sets of those. We're going to move on to leg lifts for abs, and then we'll be right on out of here. We're going to go ahead and move into leg lifts. We are still definitely working on, trying to get our legs straight and get our feet higher, but it is going to take some time to get that flexibility back and going. So I've always had difficulties with a lot of mobility, just more or less range of motion stuff, because I don't really stretch enough, and I don't really go and get any massages or anything to break up like scar tissue and loosen up the muscles and whatnot and increase flexibility any. So it's always been something that takes a long time of repetitive use to get full range of movement in most things. So just like we're working on our squats and fixing our range of movement on that and our flexibility and mobility for our knees and ankles, this is also one of those things that we're working on our mobility for. Man, I'm too heavy to be doing these things. But I feel like our feet are getting slightly higher. Our legs definitely aren't straight, but I'm not going to worry too much about that because I am mostly caring about the way my core feels as I do these, and contracting with my core and getting a stretch in the core and then getting a full contraction again. So these really nail that like front hip flexor, lower ab area for me, and a little bit of the center of the core as I'm going into like that crunch. So it's overall very effective for my abs from basically mid to hip line. So that though, I'm gonna go ahead and knock out my last few sets of these, and I'm gonna get on out of here. So with that, make sure you guys are out there and you're working towards your goals, you're getting your stuff done, and most of all, don't be a lazy fuck.